I'm DMD Alwis, and I bring you the Myths and Samsara podcast, where I explore mythology, folklore, and storytelling in the context of the cycle of life and death. I'm often coming from a Buddhist cosmological perspective, but I occasionally have guests who speak from other faith systems. I'm also the author of the Pawn of Samsara Duology. There's been a long break in these podcasts as I've completed a writing and revision cycle and hit publish on those two books, Alliance Head and Alliance Pride. In the last 9 episodes, I teased some of my work. Today, I'll talk about the world building that goes into the Pawn of Samsara universe. This is a universe that I imagine could have been our universe once upon a time. If Buddhist concepts and the idea of reincarnation interests you, sit back and get comfortable. You can find more about me and my work at the website dmdalwiz.com, and I'm on most social media channels as dmdalwiz. Let's get started. Setting the ground rules for world building for the Pawn of Samsara universe. I wrote Alliance Head, Sinha's story, over a period of 3 years. During that time, I was 1. Establishing my voice, 2. Learning how to write a compelling fantasy novel, including characters, setting, plot, and pace, and 3. Establishing the ground rules for world building. The first 2 books served as the foundation. Sinha and Isha's stories illustrate the rules of the universe. These rules have to be fixed, applicable in every instance to every character moving forward, and carry through to subsequent books. There is no exception to the rule. Consider that 1. The religious elements and how I respect the invisible lines drawn between belief and reality. There's a risk of upsetting people here. 2. My MCs don't follow the usual hero's journey. And 3. Interesting things happen to the secondary characters who are human, who are reincarnated over the course of many books. So how do I do this? Let's find out. First, I'll give you a background on the characters. Sinha is righteous and protective to a fault. He is naive and inexperienced, but his actions put him in a position of being feared as an authority. His righteous anger is driven by his desire for justice. In subsequent books, Sinha is the immortal figure whose transformations are dictated by his actions and their consequences, Karma-Vipaka. He is an illustration of how the laws of the universe affect asura or demigods. As any good titan, he has earned his riddle of invincibility. Is he constant? No, he's changing. But he is invincible, and so his life is that of an immortal. He is the outside observer. In contrast to Sinha, Isha is righteous and protective to a fault. He is established as a long-lived and experienced authority. His desire for control leads to uncertainty and chaos. Isha becomes Mahishasura. We all know how this story ends, but we won't get there by the end of Alliance Pride. Instead, my goal was to establish him as our unfortunate, often misunderstood, resident baddie. He is Singha's opposite. While well-intentioned, he is bullish. It will take much good karma to overcome his actions while under Hiranyakshipu's influence. Subsequent books will give him several redemption arcs, but ultimately, he has to square his vicious, irrational feelings for Singha, and that takes time. There's one rule that rules them all: action and consequence of that action. The universe follows one unchanging rule, the law of action and consequence, Karma-Vipaka from Buddhist Cosmology. Do good and good will come to you. Do bad and bad will come to you. Do nothing and the situation will still unfold through your inaction. Do something and you have affected it through your action. Even with the best of intentions, the outcomes can be unknown. These novels are a study of entrapment in what is called samsara, the cycle of life and death. There is no escape. There's no winning here, save for renunciation and the path to end all suffering, leading to enlightenment. I'm not writing Gautama Buddha's story here. Please note, the Pawn of Samsara duology predates the year of the Buddha's birth by an epoch, about 10,000 years in a lion's pride. So, what about the effect of influence and manipulation? While every being in this universe has freedom of choice, they do not always have freedom of perception. Their choices are made in the moment, sometimes a knee jerk reaction, sometimes well intended and thought out, often influenced by human, God, demonic needs, or thoughts. But characters make their own decisions. So, what does influence and manipulation look like? A god asks you to kill a king, commit murder. Would you do it? Your wife asks you to take her home. How far would you go to make this happen? You see a need to make a choice based on keeping your people alive versus seeing them die or be corrupted. How do your surroundings affect your choices? Who in your surroundings may voice one way or another, and how does that affect your decisions? If you're in a spiral of shame and blame, how do you respond? Do you make good decisions or lean into your worst desires? Once you've made a decision, can you renege? There's a lot to unpack here. Perception plays a huge role in accidents and mistakes because that is life. So, what about those greater gods? Where are they? The universe acts in mysterious ways. To paraphrase the mystic Carolyn Myss, silence is also an answer to prayers. Because we're working in a world that is ruled by karma, the greater gods must also keep those checks and balances in mind. While small miracles may be necessary to keep characters in play, larger miracles affect a larger number of people, and all miracles will have some spin off result. For example, to suspend consequences to whenever they can be fulfilled. So, where are the greater gods? They are as tied to the rules of the universe as everyone else. They can only act at specific points in the story, either to set things in motion through manipulation and influence, or to save innocence after everything has already transpired. Often, they will absent themselves during the action and consequence. Why? Perhaps because they too would face consequences if they get too close. To a greater God, we are ants. To a God, we are animals. To animals, we are gods. To demons, we are vulnerable. In a cosmological point of view, they too are subject to the rules of the beings that they are influencing. There's a reason why someone who despised and worked to undo a greater God is then reborn as their servant or devotee. Obsession in the form of love or hatred is still obsession, carried over to the next life without context. Love becomes hate, and hate might become love. In conclusion, by the end of the Pawn of Samsara duology, I've established the ground rules for this universe. Perception is everything. Karma-Vipaka, action consequence, is the rule. It is possible to be influenced and manipulated by good gods and bad demons or forces. Both Sinha and Isha are examples of how karma affects outcome as one becomes a god and the other a demon. In reincarnation, people die and are reborn. Their lives are dictated by past life karma. How they live this life dictates future life karma. So, implied but not discussed are how relationships are affected by what happened or will happen in the past and future lives. So, what do my readers know? This is a multiverse. In the beginning, there is an immortal realm, the earth realm, the nether realm. This is a universe featuring many types of beings, including gods, demons, and humans. Some are occasionally mentioned, for example, the Naga or the Garuda, but with limited interaction. We're not immersed in those cultures, so we're not overwhelmed. There is religion, but what we call religion may be fleeting. Instead, it's the big ideas that persist, that there's a universal force that rules and many paths to enlightenment. Immortals are subject to change, usually by their physical forms, abilities, and location, as a consequence of their actions. And humans are reborn and have no recollection of their past, but may feel a connection with people they knew before. What does this mean for my future work, A Monkey's Mask? I started this podcast talking about A Monkey's Mask, the next work in progress. I wrote the first two books, A Lion's Head and A Lion's Pride, focused on gods, greater gods, and their relationships to humans. Now that the cosmology of the universe and the rules that all beings are under is defined, I can focus on adding new dimensions such as other beings, such as the Yaksha, who are basically Fae, Raksha, who are akin to orcs, Naga, who are serpent people, or Deva, who are kind of like the elves. I can introduce mythological creatures such as Argandabas, who are comparable to cherubs, imps, or muses, as well as Gurulu and Garuda, flying birdmen, and others. I can also introduce a magic system for humans, or rather Neanderthals and Denovians, because my next philosophical question is of how global mythology and folklore teases out the different groups of sapiens. I understand how Tolkien establishes his world building with The Hobbit, but then subsequently goes a little overboard with The Lord of the Rings. The first is a feint, while the second is a skirmish. With writing style, writing ability, and most importantly, the basic ground rules established, the next story will be epic. Thank you for listening to this short episode of the Myths and Samsara podcast. Subscribe and hit thumbs up, or give me 5 stars if you like this content. For comments and feedback, please visit dmdealwis.com and subscribe to leave comments on this episode. Finally, be sure to check out my recently published books, A Lion's Head and A Lion's Pride, that comprise the Pawn of Samsara duology. These books are available anywhere and by request from most libraries. Until next time, I wish you well.